Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 19th day of November 2019. Well, I hope everyone had a good weekend. I got a lot of things done. So the weekly Rune and Moon is up on the blog. I got that done yesterday. Was it yesterday or Saturday? I think I got it done on Saturday. So hopefully that'll be a trend. So I'm not having to rush in the morning trying to get it done. It's a pretty involved reading. So if you want to check that out and see what the week's going to hold, welcome you to do that over at my blog, Stepping Aside. I'm steppingaside.com is the website address for that. And let's see, again, 9 energy. The sun's in the 12th house and Scorpio. So, expand your mind, but avoid drama and deception with others. Moon's in Leo in the 8th house. So, a good time for investments, but it's also a good time to play. So if you can get any time at all to enjoy yourself today, take advantage of that interaction. And also with the moon, there can be problems when it interacts with other planets. So there's a square with Mercury. Again, think before speaking. Mars is also in the 10th house in Libra. So again, think before speaking. So there's a little impulsive energy today. A semi-square with Jupiter also reinforces it, asking us to show restraint today. So again, our mouths could get a little bit ahead of us today, so we want to be a little careful with that. Mercury's still in retrograde till the 20th, and then of course it's still going to be feeling its effect till the end of the month, but most strongly till the 20th. But it's in the 11th house of Scorpio right now. I did this at about, 8:30 or so as the chart was cast for, so it's a little after that now. Let's see. So Mercury, 11th house Scorpio, intense communication, semi-square with Jupiter. Look inward at what you value and let go of that which no longer serves. So it looks like both the moon and Mercury in semi-square with Jupiter sort of makes me wonder if there's an aspect I need to go look at some point here and see if there's an aspect pattern there. Venus and Sagittarius in the first house, you want to nurture yourself today. Jupiter in Sagittarius in the first house makes you an inspirational teacher, but again, you might just see if anyone wants that. I've been saying that a lot lately. Sometimes our energy gets ahead of us and we assume people want our input, and when really they just kind of want to stay to themselves and, not be bothered by anybody. So, no matter how inspiring you are, again, just sort of check in and take the tone of the energetic tone of the room, if you would, and just see if maybe your offerings are in fact welcome, or if maybe they just complicate things a little bit. Currently, there's a duplicated signs and intercepted signs. Scorpio and Taurus are the duplicated, emphasizing stability and focus and a practical approach. And that's sort of the answer, I guess, to the intersection between Virgo and Pisces, because apparently there we can be easily deceived by self and others, and we can also be too judgmental. So if we emphasize stability and focus and a practical approach, we may be able to get through that. So all the interceptions. So anyhow, that's enough of that stuff. If you're working magic today, it's a Monday, and so it's the moon is influencing on Monday, and so you're going to want to think healing and feminine magics if you want. As I haven't done the astrological information and correspondences for that yet today, I don't know. I can't tell you what's favorable and what isn't yet, but that'll be up on the blog in a little while, and you can check into that if you're of that persuasion where magic factors into your life, or witchcraft does, or whatever. You can go there and you can look and see what the correspondences are for that for today, and what the current astrological outlook looks like, because believe it or not, when casting magical workings of any kind, you do consider the astrological effect to it. Is it the right time, in other words, to work this type of spell? Is Venus got a whole lot of weird aspects to it? Is it arguing? If you're trying to work a love spell, in other words, will Venus be on your side? So anyhow, something to think about. this is your first time here, welcome. I appreciate you so much coming by. Click subscribe. I'd love you to do that. And if you've come back, thank you. I appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get started. If you haven't been here before, I will tell you that I'm going to take 3 cards initially. I'm going to take the 13th card each time for randomness sake. If we need a fourth, I'll add that at the end. We'll just see, how it plays out. If we need to move our cards around, we'll do that. And then I will take a rune from the rune bag, from the Elder Futhark, and then I will create a geomancy rune. See if I can find my geomancy runes here. There they are. I had them over here on the altar. And I took the picture of them for the post. I always create a picture for my posts on the blog, so I try to do something interesting, either what it is I'm talking about, or if it's an herb, I'll have an herb, and then whatever stuff I'm doing with it, I'll have pictures and stuff like that. So it's not just words you see. You get to see cool pictures too. So if you're into herbs or whatnot, check some, I do a lot of stuff about that. If over there, I do tarot and runes, I do astrology stuff, I do all kinds of things over there. Cannabis, I talk about that. Sometimes I just rant about what's going on. So if you want to listen to a crone rant or something, then you can read something over there that's like that, and you'll find plenty. There was a time when I was doing Dear Donald posts every so often, but it just got too upsetting, so I stopped doing that. He just doesn't understand anything. So, I was just trying to help. I don't know. At my own expense, I guess. It triggered me too much. So anyway, let's go ahead and lay out our 3 cards. And, I just nuked that thing off the screen. Where is that? Okay. Let me pull this back up since I'm done with the astrology notes. And we'll take our first 3 cards. Assuming I can hold on to them. Well, we start out with the 4 of Pentacles. And I'm not going to spend any time talking about them right this minute. I'm just going to lay them down. I'll tell you what they are, though. Oh, well, I'm being card challenged at the moment. Page of Swords. We had that last week. Did not have the 4 of Pentacles last week, though, I don't believe. We definitely had the Page of Swords, maybe even more than once. Either that or we had it the week before. So you're talking new direction, new message. And when you start to see them come up each week, or you see them more than once during a week, then you know that that's really something that's factoring into what we're doing. Oh, I didn't show you. The Magician. I'm going to go ahead and put him in the middle. Whenever I have a single, it may not stay there, but it likely will. But whenever I have a single card from the Major Arcana in a 3-card reading, I like to put that in the middle and sort of have that be the focus of the reading, the significator, if you will. So if we're talking about the significator, then we're talking about a 1 energy of new beginnings. You see he's expressing as above, so below energy there with his right hand with a scroll in it, likely the Torah, the word of God, if you will, the voice of spirit pointing upward, and his left hand pointing to form, the receptive side of self. Earth is considered receptive. So that's your receptive presence. This would be spirit, which would theoretically be ether or air maybe, or fire, but both fire and air are active, and so they're not a passive influence like the earth. So you're talking a projective influence there. You see the garlands, the rose garlands above him, signaling abundance. You see it all down below, the lilies, all of that below him. Again, abundance of spirit, abundance of form. You see all 4 of his tools on the table, don't you? The pentacle for earth, the chalice for water, the sword for air, and the staff or the wand for fire. You see a fiery background, the yellow vitality, energy. This is manifestation. From a gross alchemical standpoint, it's the macrocosm manifesting into the microcosm. So, with that in mind, what are we going to manifest? Well, The king here manifests his own wealth. He's all concerned about himself. You see the kingdom in the background. And there he is sitting on just a, I don't know, you don't see a back to it, so maybe it's just a box it looks like he's sitting on, just a seat, if you will. Can't tell if there's a back to it or not. He's got his feet on his coins there, on his pentacles. He's holding one in his hand like this. He's just hanging on for dear life. In fact, he's also displaying it on top of his crown. So because you see, it's not enough that he's just the king. He has to display his wealth. So we have issues of structure. We have issues of how do we transact our lives? Do we do it, from a material, practical standpoint? The four is about foundation and structure. Pentacles is the earth element. So we're talking the practical side of self, the material side of self, the form side of self. So how are we going to do that? Are we going to hang on to everything we have, or are we going to be generous with others? And not just simply the money aspect of it. Are we going to be generous with our time, our knowledge, ourself, basically? Or are we going to hang on to everything and be miserly about it? Is it all going to center on me instead of the rest of us? So in the family, it's all about daddy, perhaps, or whoever the strongest projective energy is, which could be mom. And maybe they're not so concerned with what's happening in the family. Maybe they're just concerned about themselves. Maybe this is, I'm going to play. I'm going to, it's all just going to be my life. However, we have the Page of Swords here. We see the clouds in the background. He's basically breaking through illusion here. With swords is the air element, or reason, intellect, balance, justice. So are we going to manifest this miserly thing, or are we going to perhaps engage with others in a new direction and realize that it doesn't serve anyone if you can't share this? If you can't share, your knowledge serves no one if you don't share it. Your generosity touches no one if you don't share it. Your willingness to be present with others doesn't happen if you don't share it. And so with the Page of Swords, we're talking about a new direction. We're talking about a new message, new information coming in. And we have to, there's movement here. You see the wind blowing his hair. You see over here, you see the tree, the wind's blowing the tree there as well. You see the three mountains in the background depicting triple aspects, mind, body, spirit, and balance, perhaps. Challenges, yes, but we face them together as opposed to alone. So you see the struggle then that the magician is asking us to cope with today, don't you? It's all about, are we going to, be into ourselves and see only our own needs, or are we willing to maybe consider a new direction? A new way forward, a new message is coming in. Do we dare take a fourth card? We're only at 13 minutes. Why don't we? I didn't chat as long this morning before I started about the day and about the astrology and all that good stuff. So a lot of the aspects were in weaker positions, so I didn't feel compelled to say anything about those, but I just sort of focus on the stronger or the medium ones. If the medium ones are reinforcing some of the stronger ones, particularly. Otherwise, I try not to overburden everyone here with all of it. Sometimes it's interesting, and I just get carried away. Okay, so definitely new beginnings. Darkest before the dawn. We've gone as far as we can go. Reason run mad. Yeah. The idea of what was it? Letting go of what no longer serves. Okay, the Mercury semi-square Jupiter. Yeah, looking inward at what you value and letting go of that which no longer serves you. Outmoded ideas. They can really be the death of you, can't they? I mean, metaphorically speaking, you kind of think, well, I'm going to hang on to what I believe and all of that, and you find out that in fact, it was all based on nonsense, and you listen to someone else. In other words, maybe you it's like when and I hate to beat up on religion, but it's probably the easiest one to do this with. You have there's nothing wrong with religion per se, right? The fellowship of it, the like-mindedness, as long as everybody is like-minded in a way of compassion. But when you realize that the particular religion or denomination or whatever it is that you belong to, suddenly you feel this, feeling within, and maybe you've just gotten to a point where you no longer believe what they're saying. And once you get out away from it, you might still retain some of it, but then there's just this core stuff you just don't get anymore, right? And so you realize that it was actually holding you back in a way, maybe from exploring new ideas. If it's a group that's real close-knit and they don't allow outsiders and they don't allow, I mean, I hate to view it in cultish terms, but it kind of is when you don't allow for free expression and engagement with other people that are different than you are. That's kind of cult-like in that sort of mentality. And so maybe you emerge from something like that and you realize the impact, that it's had on you, okay? So maybe today you're sort of awakening into, and maybe because it's money, you're going to do a little inner healing with it, but maybe you're awakening to the idea that the veil of the moon is dissipating now, and what the moon's veiling, you're being able to see a little better now. And I just have to wonder if we're ready to make a decision where this letting go of what no longer serves. I think that this has been something, the energy has been moving in us in this direction for those that need to do that. If it's conflict, maybe both sides need to just drop, lay down their arms and just come into just have another conversation, because maybe the time is right now for something better to take place. Maybe a different kind of conversation is possible today. Again, when you decide, where it is you're going to go with all this energy, are you going to be someone who hangs on to everything and hangs on to, because it's not just money, it's also, your foundation, your legacy, your belief structure, all of that is part of, who you are in the physical aspect of self. We think that it's, the elements are separate. They're not. They blend together. They're part of one another. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an earth. There wouldn't be bodies. There wouldn't be any of that. It's a blend together. You see the different suits, and so, yeah, you have, some specific energies involved, but it's rare when you find a card, that doesn't have, other elements in it. I mean, seriously. Here we have Birkenau, which, is that the 18th rune? I think so. Let me look. Oh, yeah. So aligns well with today's energy. So energy of healing, fertility, abundance, but definitely healing. Now I'm going to show you the energy of Birkenau here. I'm going to draw it out. I do that sometimes because it makes sense, I think, to do that. These runes are essentially bind runes. You could theoretically, what kind of a pen is this? This is that's not what I want. I'll do this one. I think that was for one of those dry erase boards. So here we have Birkenau. I'm going to show you what it contains. Isa, the stillness within, a Norn rune of the present moment. Lagus, flow with others, another water element rune. Birkenau, though, is earth. Now we're going to have Kenaz 3 times, which is the torch. It's another higher self rune, rune of spirit. It opens inward twice to self, and it opens outward once to everyone else. So spirit coming in twice and spirit going out once. So you can see that the heavier weight is on spirit informing the self, and then you then turn that energy outwards. I'm going to leave this one right here so I can use it again when I do the geomancy rune. But you can see that there's a lot of energy that goes into Birkenau, but primarily the light of spirit. Having spirit inform that entire process, understanding what abundance is, understanding what fertility is, understanding about coming together in unity with others. That doesn't happen if you choose this, if this is your foundation and structure. However, we can change that at any time and do something else. You know, Magician is a soul archetype card. Anything from the major arcana is, and so it's basically telling us we have the power to make this choice. So we can head off in a new direction, letting go of that which no longer serves. And maybe those are ideas that have just plagued us and kept us in a box. I mean, I know I gave the description of a cult-like religious thing. It doesn't have to be that. It can just be a group of friends that you've just gotten, there's no boundaries left in there, and you've lost yourself to the group, you know, or perhaps you've lost yourself to a set of ideas that really aren't solving the problem, right? And so at some point, you got to stop and say, well, you know, if all of this conflict is here, why? Is it because it needs to be, because it's going to catalyze change, you know, that's necessary? Or is it conflict for conflict's sake? I think collectively we're experiencing conflict to keep one guy in the Oval Office. But it's all manufactured. It's all contrived. So you have to ask yourself, since, you know, the greater tends to, you know, either what's going on in our personal lives, if reflects the same energy that's going on collectively, or maybe the collective energy grows out of little pockets of personal things going on. I don't know. Either way that works, you know, you have to ask yourself, you know, is that really working for me? Let me set this over here while I do the geomancy runes. Let's see what they have to say, though. Now, geomancy is an earth element type of experience here, a divination method. It can involve pendulum work, or it can involve, you know, throwing peas down or beans down. Oh, well, this is easy. This is populous. It's either going to have, I decided to just create 4 runes, because having a handful of whatever, beans or peas or whatever to throw down and then count, you know, if you count an odd number, that's a single dot. That's what you put down. If you count, you know, an even number, then you put down 2 dots. So I just decided, well, why don't I just do 4 runes and have 2 dots on one side, or 1 dot on one side, code it for the element, because they have to be, see, and then there's 2 on this side. This is for air. They have to be put in an order of fire, air, water, and earth. And so it's going to be a vertical type of a glyph that you create, or rune that you create. And here, there's really just 8, but then you have their complements or opposites. So there's 16 runes in geomancy. There it is. And again, you know, today we have populous. Last week we had Vaya, which is new direction, and that was, I believe we had Vaya on the same day that I had the Page of Swords. So definitely. But here we're going to go along with the flow. We're going to go along with the crowd. So apparently, and this is what also I think has been happening, is we've had this momentum building for the last couple of months, or last few months, where we're starting to see some cohesion of thought as new facts come out in our lives, whether it's what's happening, you know, in the government or what's happening in our personal life. Maybe we're starting to have some breakthrough into, you know, if we're having a personal struggle with a family member or a spouse or at work or a neighbor or whatever, or whatever's happening, if there's some things that you don't or haven't been understanding, or you haven't been clear about, I think that a lot of that is being resolved now. And whenever that happens, if we allow ourselves to listen and truly, you know, discern the truth of it, you know, you're going to know if it's pure crap. But if you just automatically take the idea that everything, you know, in the mainstream media is crap, well, it's not, and you're not serving yourself well. And so that's the whole point of letting go of what no longer serves you, because that doesn't serve you, and instead join the group. join the group and go in the same direction. Here, this promises a new direction. And obviously, one that's not a self-oriented focus. We focus and we talk about the law of one from time to time. That was a channeled text back in the 70s or something, or early 80s, maybe it was. I think maybe it was the early 80s. I think they were working on it prior to that, and then when they finally got everything just so, they contacted the Ra group. Essentially, that's what came through. And the Ra group is supposedly a group of extraterrestrial beings that were on planet, that were part of creating who we are. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a greater aspect of self that we need to be looking at. And when we talk about service to self as service to others, and that's where you start hearing that. Well, you heard it before the Raw group, but before that particular Law of One text. And I encourage you all just to look through it, read it. You can go on to, was it lawofone.info, I think it is, and you can just read the whole thing there. You can download it. It's really remarkable. It really talks about who was here and what that was all about, and how we all came to be, and all of that in a way that's different than what you typically see. Very similar to the Seth material. If you read that, you'll see some similarities there. But they got together and they did this, and the main concept out of all of it, if you get nothing else out of it, it's the idea that before incarnating, we make the choice to serve self or others. And here, we have an expression of service to self. And I suspect this is the effect of it. And at some point, I don't know that it's necessarily carved in stone. I don't know that you are stuck with that choice once you incarnate. I would hope that at some point you can evolve while here, and that you're not simply stuck in that one mindset. Unfortunately, for some people, it seems like they do. They talk about Hitler, they talk about, and that when he passed, he was taken somewhere else. His soul was taken somewhere else for healing. Because the questions were asked, what about these really evil people in life that have such a massive effect on the whole world, And that's what they were talking, is that, well, once you're done here, you're going to ascend somewhere. And if your service to others, you're going to ascend to a higher dimension, basically, a lesser density, basically, more spiritual place. And then if you're so totally service to self, you're likely not going to do that. You're going to have to come in at a higher density. You're going to have to go somewhere else for healing. And it's probably going to take you a couple of rounds to do that. So what I've read of, what I remember is that people like him won't come back in to the matrix until 6th density. So, which if you look at Ashiana Dean's work, you're looking at, in the Voyager series, you're looking at, I believe that would be the 2nd harmonic universe, and we're in the 1st. So they're going to come in at the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd are in the 1st harmonic universe, 4th, 5th, and 6th are in the 2nd. And so they're going to come in at the top end of the 2nd harmonic universe before they can go then and move into the next one with everyone else. So they'll come back to us at that point, but they won't be around us until then. So I guess, when you're looking at this from a soul perspective, you have to realize that, where's your focus? How are you going to manifest that focus? Are you going to manifest it in terms of just the self? Or are you going to manifest it in terms of service to others? Because when service to others happens, you're taken care of. You're not left in the cold. It's not just you giving. Although what would be wrong with that? Again, what is the transactional nature of your life? Is it focused solely on your own needs, or are you able to consider others? So, Populace would suggest it might be others that you want to focus on. Get into that flow, that unified consciousness flow, right? And see where that takes you. So anyhow, not too bad for a Monday. I guess that's it. I've got to get ready. So, because my husband's going to come in at any moment and say, I've got the water sample. So he's going to go, I think, to a neighbor's house and get it. So we like to vary it whenever we can instead of just taking it at our house all the time. So anyhow, I guess I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much again for coming by. I appreciate it. Again, click subscribe if you haven't, and check out the blog. The correspondences and astro information will go up today. I do that chart for noon every day, and then this one the information I give here is just somewhere around the time that I'm going to do it. So 9ish. Sometimes it's at 10. It just depends on what my morning's like. But I'm trying to do them earlier. And so the information I give at this time is just for an earlier time in the morning. Because believe it or not, even though the signs and the planets and all the positioning likely won't change, the houses might, especially with the moon. It shifts, every 2 hours or something. Anyway, roughly, I mean, not exactly, but anyway, it moves all the time throughout the day. So 1 minute it's in this house, the next minute it's in that one. So anyway, I guess that's it then, and I will see you tomorrow. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.